Okay, welcome back. This is the series of videos about the power pod for the Flite Test series of swappable aircraft. And the first aircraft we're going to be doing is the Flite Test. I'm sorry, the FT Flyer swappable from Flite Test. And so I've already cut out the power pod. It's just the rough cutout, and so I'm going to go into some detail about how I like to cut out the final cut. So what I'm going to do is first off, I want to make sure that the razor blade I'm going to use, and I'm going to use this one here. I just recently snapped off a blade, and so I know it's good and sharp, but just to make sure, I'm going to test. And so what I'm going to do is make a cut like I would normally make. So I'm going to put the razor blade next to the ruler here. Make sure the razor blade is out far enough and lock it. I like that to be locked. Then I'm going to get nice and vertical and do a simple pass. Okay. And then a second pass, and sometimes it has to take a third pass. There we go. So the third 2 or 3 passes get you a nice vertical cutoff of a piece of scrap here. That's just a piece of scrap. So now I'm going to take the ruler and get it exactly where I want it. Okay, I'm going to take some tape and tape that ruler down, because you don't want that ruler to move once you start the process of cutting it. That way it's less likely to move, because you're going to be running the razor blade against the ruler. And so it's where I want it. I'm going to do a light pass to cut the top of the paper. Okay. Do a second pass. And see if that moves. Nope. So we'll do a third pass. Okay. So that took 3 passes, and that's pretty vertical. So I'm quite happy with that cut. And so that was the one side. I'll remove the tape carefully. I like to use the blue masking tape because it doesn't harm the paper at all. I'm going to turn it around. I saved these scraps, okay? I'm going to turn it around, and now I'm actually going to use the, where'd it go? There we go. I'm going to use a 6-inch ruler rather than the 18-inch ruler. I'm going to cut the 2 pieces up here, but I'm always going to cut in the direction outward, like that and like that. So that'll get that cut. So I'm going to put the ruler down. Okay, now you can do this one of 2 ways. Sometimes I like to put the ruler down so that the cut is on the outside. So if it slips, it's likely to slip out this way and not ruin the piece. So I'm going to put the tape down. So now I'm going to do the cut to the outside, and if the knife were to slip, it'll slip out here to the scrap side and not ruin the other side. So now that I don't have to hold that tape so the ruler so hard, I can just start in here, do one cut all the way to the end, and I can see what I just did, which is a typical mistake. I didn't keep it next to the ruler here, and it went out to the outside. So I'm going to repeat that pass, making sure that the knife edge stays right up against that ruler. Okay. And I may have dulled the blade. We'll see. No, blade's not dull yet. Okay, so that's good. I'll flip this around and over to the other side. second pass. Okay, now I can just lift it over and I can see whether it's cut all cleanly through, and it is cut cleanly through on both sides. And then we'll make the final pass here in the center. I'm going to do this again so that if the knife slips, it will slip to the waste side, to the scrap side of the board. Okay. Get my tape back down where I want it, so that's nice and taped down. Now what I'm going to do is not go all the way to the end. I'm going to insert to this point here and go part way, then turn it around and go that way. That way the it's easier to find that point, the starting point, that way. Okay. This blade might be getting dull already. Okay. Let's see if that actually breaks out, and it does. Okay. Well, so on the back side, I can see that I just missed a little bit of a corner here. And I'll cut that from the back side here a little, just to cut the paper. Okay. And then usually this will just break out. You don't want to break it and ruin the paper, but if there's just a little bit left like that, you can cut it from the back side. Okay. And so now that's cut out perfectly. And I'll take my tape off. Okay. And so there's a good straight even cut. The blade is slightly dull because it didn't cut that nice and smooth. I'll have to, in fact I'll do it now. I'll try it with a this piece of scrap here. Just want to make sure this blade is actually good. Okay. Yeah, that blade's still okay. Yeah, maybe not. Let me do the third pass here. I like to do 2 or 3 passes because the you do the first pass to cut the top part of the paper, the second pass to cut most of the foam, and the third pass to cut the bottom part of the paper. So 3 passes works for me. This is still a good knife. My technique might have been a little off, but it's in good shape. That's a very smooth, even cut. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing to cut these outsides, and I'll be back in a second to show you how I cut the red lines. I'll be right back. Okay, just to show you one more point. Again, if you make sure that this is all lined together when you're cutting out for these tabs, and this is taped on, you can flip your board around and cut nicely without having the ruler move. And so you can cut all those 3 out, and now I've just got to do these little cuts at the top, which would be quite simple. So I'll be right back. Okay, now that this is completely cut around the outside, I'm going to cut the 2 red lines. And to do that, I always use a new knife, a new blade on a knife. And so I'm going to try out the new X-Acto knife, the Z series, the zirconium nitrated blade, and I figure it's the sharpest tool in the box. So we're going to see how we do this one. Remember, we're not cutting all the way through here, so you do 2 light passes. The first thing I'm going to do is put the ruler down exactly where I want it, and I do the red line that's to the outside first. Okay, so I'm going to put that down. Okay, and that looks like a good straight line, and I always like to draw it toward me. So I'm going to try out the blade, get it nice and straight, and just a very light pass. just enough to cut the top paper. Okay, and then a second light pass. And I'm going to look at it and go, I'm going to do a third light pass. This is cutting sharply, and I don't want to cut too deep. There we go. Now I can feel I'm down into the foam by the pressure I'm having to put on it. There we go. Okay. I want to turn it over and make sure I haven't messed up. So nothing has come through this paper. Very good. Okay. And I'm going to pull the ruler off using my blue tape. And I'm going to put the ruler back down nice and straight. Okay. You can also take a piece of scrap because this width should be the width of this. Okay. And all right, what I'm going to do is I've exposed too much of the line here, so I'm going to reposition this to be a little closer to that red line. Okay. Now it doesn't have to be absolutely exact, but the better and straighter it is, the easier it'll be to fold it and break it. Okay, so now that that's down, I'm going to try to do two good passes here. Applying enough pressure to cut the paper first. Okay, second pass enough to cut more of the foam. Now I'm sure if I tried a third pass, I'd cut the paper on the bottom, so I'm not going to do a third pass. Nice thing about this, it comes with a nice cover. This razor blade is nice because it's got a really good cover for it. Don't cut yourself. So I'm going to take this off. Okay. And now we're going to see how well that did. So what I'm going to do is just try to break the outside line here. Okay. Now because they're both cut, I could break the inside line, but I'm going to try to break the outside line by sort of holding the inside line. And that broke nice and cleanly. Okay. So that's good. Then I'm going to take the tool that I showed earlier, and I'm going to fold this over like that and use this tool to break out the foam off the paper. So what I try to do is, I'll try to get a close-up here. What I'm trying to do is to push this foam out without trying to break it. Okay, work my way along. Okay, and then work my way, start it back at the beginning and see if I can peel it off. There we go. So it's peeling off nicely. So you can see that that's now peeling off quite nicely, and it's not leaving any residue here at the bottom. If it does, it's okay, because you can clean that residue off with this tool here. Okay, so just working slowly. See how slow I'm going to do this one? This tool is sharp enough that you can find the razor blade cut, work your way down in, and just work this paper off. Take your time. Okay, so what you should end up with is a nice piece of foam, and then you can check this edge here to see how clean it is. I can drag the sharp edge over this and make sure it's clean. And gets any extra little bits and pieces off. That looks pretty good. Okay. Now the test is how well this thing folds up and over. Okay, so you can see it folding up. So you can see the gap there. Okay. Then it folds up and over. And looks like it'll hold 90 degrees just fine. So to test, I'm going to actually test holding this at 90 degrees. So I'm going to fold it up and over. Get this out of my way. And I'm going to use my wooden blocks to get to 90 degrees. So I've got the two wooden blocks being held up on the surface, work surface here. And so when I go to glue it, that will make sure they stay right at 90 degrees. Okay. I'll do the other side, and the cutout for the power pod will be done. So just do the other red line exactly the same way. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for the next video.